The purpose of this video is to give you a refresher on composition of functions. We talked about this in class before spring break, but just to give you a quick refresher on what do we mean by composition of functions, we're going to go through this video. Okay, these are the same notes that we had in class. Composition of functions, we're going to talk first about what happens when you have a number inside. But composition of functions means that you're going to nest one function inside of another. When you see f with a little circle, so you see this open circle, and then you see another function, so you have two functions with a circle, that open circle in between, that means composition. Okay, that circle means composition. So we could say f circle g or f composed with g. What we're going to talk specifically in this case is what happens when inside of the parentheses after that f circle g, what happens if you have a number inside? And that's what we're going to talk about first. Alright, so first of all, when we say f circle g or f composed with g with a number, what that really means is to start by writing f and then putting parentheses and then putting g of that number inside. So the first function is what we would call the outside function. The first one is the outside function. The second one that's listed after the circle is what we would call the inside function. So in example 1, we have two functions. We have f and we have g. Part A asks us to find f composed with g, or f circle g of 2. So we are going to start by talking about the idea that f would represent kind of that first function, or the outside function, if you will, here in this case, and g is representing that second function, or that inside function. So the definition is always the first thing that I write. The definition of f composed with g is to write it as f, and then inside of that we're going to put in g, and we're going to put parentheses, and inside of that parentheses we're going to put a 2. So that's always the first thing that I write. And the 2 is what's going inside of that composition. Okay, so step 1 says to put that number into the inside function. So we're going to put 2 into the inside function g first. So we're going to start with g, start with the inside function, and we're going to write that function without any x's. We're going to replace all the x's with parentheses, and then we're going to drop the 2 inside of all those parentheses. And we're going to simplify that using a calculator. Alright, you can also use order of operations, but I'm going to ask you just to throw all of that into the calculator that we have used all semester. Alright, now step 2 says that we're going to take the result that we got and we're going to put that into the outer function. The outer function is f, so we're going to write down function f with parentheses in place of x, so that's 7 times parentheses plus 3. And we're going to take that 11 that we got from the previous answer, and we're going to drop that into the parentheses that we see. Alright, we're going to throw that into our calculator, and we get, what, 77 plus 3, I think that gives us 80. Alright, and so our steps say that the last number you get is the final and the only answer. So our final answer there is 80. Alright, so if you wanted to, when you're doing your homework, you would see, in my math lab, it would say f composed with g of 2, and then in that blank you would put in 80. Alright, so the last number is your final and only answer. You only get one answer to this, and that's 80. Alright, part B is actually going in the opposite direction. We have g circle f of 2. So we have a number going inside of the composition. We have that number 2. First, we're going to write out our definition. The definition is G first, and then parentheses. Inside of that, we're going to drop in F, and inside those parentheses, we're going to put in a 2. Alright, so we're going to follow the directions for putting a number inside of a composition. To put a number inside of the composition, step 1 says that we're going to start with the inside function. So we're going to start with, this time, we're going to start with F. I'm going to color code this. I'm going to erase this time. Okay. So we're going to start with the inside function F. So this time F is the inside function. So we're going to start with writing F. I'm going to put something into F, so F of something equals, and we're going to do 7 times parentheses plus 3. So we're going to write out function F, that inside function, with empty parentheses, and then we're going to drop the 2 inside of F. And then we're going to simplify that and see what we get. Is that 14 plus 3? I think that's 17. Here we go. Now step 2 says we're going to take that answer that we just got, and we're going to drop that into the outer function. So this time that outside function is now G. Okay, that's the one on the outside. So we're going to write out function G. G of x. So we're going to put parentheses where we see an x. Okay, there's our function G. And now I'm going to take the 17 that we got from the previous answer, and we're going to drop that into that outside function G. And we use our calculator, and I get 641. Okay, so our final and only answer, when we take G of F of 2, is we get 641. And so that's the only answer that we get, and that's the only thing that I would type into my math lab. Alright, now I'm going to scroll down to the next page, and let's look at functions G and H. We're going to do a composition both ways, and we're putting a -3 into both compositions. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write down my definition. G circle H of -3 means I'm going to start by writing G as the outside function. Inside of G, we're going to put H, put our parentheses there for H, and then inside of H, we're going to put that -3. So -3 is the number that's going inside of the composition. Alright, let's color code a little bit here. I'm going to call the first function G, we'll call that our red function. The H function, we'll have that in blue. Alright. So step 1 says to put the number into the inside function. So the inside function there is the H function, and I'm going to write that as the square root of 7 minus parentheses. And inside of those parentheses, you want to be careful here, we're dropping in a -3. Not just a 3, but a -3. And so when I put that -3 into the parentheses, we have 2 negatives now. So we have a negative, then parentheses, and then a negative. So when you go to simplify this, you want to be careful that you put your parentheses in first, and then drop in the number, and then make sure you're careful with double negatives. So that's actually what? 7 plus 3, which equals the square root of 10. Alright? Can't simplify that anymore, so I'm going to leave it as it is. The second step of putting a number into a composition is to write the outside function. So the outside function here being G. And I'm going to write that with parentheses in place of x. And now I'm going to drop my previous results, that square root of 10, we're going to put that into function G. So everywhere we have parentheses, we're going to put that previous result into that outside function. Okay, now we're going to simplify that. the square root of 10 squared. That's the square root of 10 times the square root of 10. Square root of 10 times square root of 10, that's the square root of 10 times 10. Remember, we can multiply those together underneath the same square root. If I have 2 of a kind underneath, we can circle, cross that out, and we can bring 1 out. So we end up with 10. And then subtracting a 3, we get a 7. Okay, that is our final answer. So that is our only and last final answer. So if I were typing this into my math lab, it would say G circle H, G composed with H, and it would have that -3. And the only number that you're going to type in as an answer there would be that +7. The last and final number that we get is the only solution. Okay, what if we do it in the opposite direction? So I'm going to start with function H this time, and inside that I'm going to put in function G, and then inside function G we're going to put that -3. So this time -3 is going into this composition. Okay, this time the inside function is actually going to be G. So I'm going to start with that red function. I'm going to write out that inside function G, so replacing all of the parentheses, or replacing all of the x's with parentheses, and then I'm going to drop in a -3. Okay, be careful with your signs. Alright, -3 squared. It's -3 times -3. You can put that right into your calculator pretty easily, but you get a +9. 9 minus 3 gives us a +6. Now remember, that is not my final answer. I want to take that result and I want to put it now into the outside function H. So we're going to write out function H as an empty function, putting parentheses everywhere I have an X. And now I'm going to drop that result 6 into all those parentheses for that outside function. Okay, I'm going to start simplifying this. 7 minus 6 is 1. The square root of 1, and you can put that into your calculator again, would be 1. So our final and only answer for H composed with G of -3 would be that +1. So in my math lab, I'm only typing in that one number as my final answer. So the last number I get is the only and final answer.